have always loved museums. Those lovely spaces that hold old and odd objects reaching across time to tell their stories. I thought that we could create our own old objects, artifacts, items that tell folk tales and spark imagination. Let's create some fossilized fairy footprints. First, we'll need some fairy feet. So I'm starting with 2 small, similarly sized pieces of polymer clay. Roll one piece into an oblong. Press the clay to narrow the heel of the foot. Then push one side to create the arch. You want a sort of wonky kidney shape. For the toes, I'm using tiny cylinders used for punching holes in clay, but only pressing them partway through. Then I cut away the excess around the toes. If you don't have cutters like these, don't worry. You can make tiny balls of clay and add them to the surface to create the toes. There's no right or wrong here. Do what works best for you with what you have on hand. I use a blade, a silicone sculpting tool, a toothpick, and my fingers to sculpt my little foot just so. You don't need fancy tools. Be resourceful with what you already have, and just take your time. When one little foot is done, it's time to make its mirror image. Try to get it about the same size and shape as your first one, but don't stress if it's a little bit different. Chances are your own feet aren't perfectly matched. A quick side note, I will be including these feet in future projects, so if you do decide to play along, be sure to tuck them away somewhere safe to use later. Once the feet have been sculpted, I'm cutting 2 lengths from a wooden skewer and pushing them into the back of the feet. These will act as little handles, and they also help me not to lose my feet in my mess of a stash. When I baked my sculpty feet, the skewers popped out, but no worries. I simply glued them securely in place. Now to gather a few leaves. I think hardy leaves with strong stems and prominent texture are ideal for this project. More delicate foliage will add a more subtle impression. It's entirely up to you. I'm using Das air dry clay here. It's fairly resilient, doesn't warp or shrink too much, and it paints well. I'm rolling the clay between 2 wooden sticks to give me an even thickness. This is entirely optional. My freshly plucked leaves are placed on the surface of the clay. I'm just sort of scattering them about. I pass over the clay again with the roller so that the leaves leave their impression in the clay. And now for the tiny footprints. Will your fairies walk or jump or dance? I place a few prints on my clay slab, pressing hard enough to leave a strong impression, but not going all the way through the clay. I remove the leaves and have a final inspection before setting aside my piece to dry. Once dry, I use acrylic paint on this piece. Using washes, I cover the surface. I use shades of gray, but also brown. Stone has such a variety of color if you look closely. Purples, blue, ochres, greens. I work in many thin layers of paint. Thinning the paint gives it transparency, which helps to add depth when applied in layers. It also increases the working time, allowing me to blend with a damp sponge by tapping on the surface. More paint, more tapping and blending. What I don't want is a solid flat color. These tiny little variations that I'm creating may not seem like much, but they make a big difference. While you're painting, don't forget the sides and back of your piece. With some heavily watered down washes of dark paint, I'm highlighting the impressions on the surface. I just want to add a touch of emphasis, so I'm not going heavy-handed here. Just a tiny drop of wash in the creases to add dimension. The tiny brush I'm using here to highlight the veins of the leaf is a little disposable eyeliner brush. A bundle of them is fairly inexpensive and lasts longer than pricey, fine paintbrushes. If you work on a small scale, They're an incredible addition to your tool roster. If you have a little too much wash pooling in an area, a dry paintbrush can be used to wick away the excess. It's more precise than a sponge or cloth. And now for the presentation. First, to make everything look very official, I'm creating a specimen tag. I'm filling it with details about my artifact, that it was found on the west lawn at Pixie Hill, and it has today's date. I'm using an inexpensive deep IKEA frame to display my artifact. I place my fossil on some backing board and affix it in place using sticky putty. I knead it until soft and then place several pieces on the back. I firmly press it into place. You can absolutely use glue if that's what you have on hand. A snip of double-sided tape holds my artifact tag in place. Then all that's left is to assemble the frame pieces. There you have it. A very important historical artifact, physical proof of the fair folk, undeniable evidence that frolicking fae have long been a part of the landscape. But perhaps before being officially documented and preserved, you'd prefer to have your fossil discovered, uncovered in the wild. Yes, you'd need to protect your fossil first, but imagine a magical excavation on your very own lawn. A fairy artifact nestled into the moss or buried under the earth, just waiting to be stumbled upon. Oh, the magic you could weave. Thank you, friends, for joining me. I'll see you soon. Cross my heart.